They drained me like a debit card with a heart beaten till I cut every cord and rewrote the meaning of family. At exactly 2:14 a.m., Riley Green's world cracked open. The sharp ping of her phone startled her awake, but it wasn't an emergency call or a late-night message from a friend. It was a bank alert. $36,842.19. Withdrawn. Riley stared at the number. Blinked again. She sat upright in bed, chest tightening, air thickening around her. Gone, all of it. The room spun, panic set in. She scrambled to log into her bank app, hoping it was a mistake, a glitch, but there it was in cold, black font. The savings she'd spent years building vanished. Her name was Riley Green. And what you're about to hear isn't just a story about stolen money. It's a story about blood, betrayal, and finally, choosing yourself. Her first call was to her father. He answered. On speaker, Riley could hear music in the background, laughter her mother's. "Hey Dad," she said, trying to sound calm. "Something's wrong with my account. My card's declined, and it's maxed out." "Did something happen?" A pause. Then his voice, tinged with irritation. "You're always so dramatic. The family needed help. Your mom had surgery. Your brother's truck broke down. The mortgage was behind. We figured you'd understand." She froze. "Why didn't you ask me?" His answer, a scoff. "We don't need to ask for what you owe us." And then came her mother's voice, dismissive, mocking. "Besides, what were you going to do? Buy yourself a cake and candles. You can celebrate alone. We had better plans." That silence afterward. That was her final birthday gift. "Then don't ever call me again," Riley said, and she meant it. The next 24 hours were surgical. Every joint account, every cosign agreement. She went through them like a surgeon with a scalpel. The mortgage, canceled. The truck, repossessed by noon. Student loans, frozen. Cosign revoked. No warnings. No fights, just cold, methodical action. She wasn't the fixer anymore, she was the firewall. The next morning, her phone lit up like a firestorm. Texts, missed calls, speech bubbles. "Riley, the truck's gone. What's going on? Honey, did something happen with the mortgage? Just call us, we're family. Family. That word was suddenly grotesque. She ignored the messages. She was too busy changing passwords, freezing credit, and closing every open door they had ever taken for granted, because they forgot something. Riley wasn't just generous. She was the guarantor, the owner, the emergency contact. They treated like a debit card, and that was over. By Friday, they were desperate enough to show up in person. She watched from the peephole. Dad, red-faced, pacing the porch like he owned the place. Mom, fake crying in her leopard print cardigan. She let them knock, let them shout, let them pound the door. "Riley, you're ruining everything. We trusted you." She didn't answer. Just sat on the couch, sipping coffee from a mug they had once given her. It said "Number 1 daughter." She let the doorbell ring. When it stopped, she opened her laptop and sent the final email to her lawyer. Full dissociation paperwork. Power of attorney revoked. Financial ties dissolved. Even the family phone plan, the streaming services, and the utilities, gone. She cut every single cord. That afternoon, her mother posted a cryptic status on Facebook. "It's always the ones you love most who hurt you the deepest." The comments flooded in. "You raised her too. Soft. She owes you everything. Kids today are so entitled." Riley laughed bitterly. She had given them everything, not out of duty, but out of love. Because she believed in family until they weaponized it. She changed her number that night. Left one voicemail. "You chose your comfort over my trust. You broke what I spent a lifetime building. Now you can rebuild, without me." And then she blocked every number. Silence. The same silence they used to drain her life. Only now, it was hers. The next week, her cousin Amanda messaged her. "Did you shut off the gas? It's freezing." Riley stared at the message. "I didn't shut it off. I just stopped paying for it." No reply, just silence. And this time, it didn't sting. It felt like freedom. More messages came. Emails, burners, guilt-laced texts. Her mom. "We didn't raise you to be like this." Riley didn't open it. She didn't need to. Because here's the truth. They did raise her like this. They taught her that love had a price. That loyalty came with a bill. Her value was measured by what she could give. So when she stopped giving, they called her heartless, but she wasn't heartless, she was healing. Riley Green had never intended to turn her back on her family forever, not at first. When she shut off the accounts, froze the payments, and revoked the lifelines, she told herself it was temporary. A necessary boundary. A line drawn not in anger, but in survival. But lines have a way of hardening into walls, and walls, once tall enough, start to look like fortresses. It had been 3 months since she cut ties. 3 months of silence. No calls, no texts, no tearful voicemails. Just quiet, until a letter slipped under her apartment door. Not an email, not a DM, not a carefully crafted guilt trip via social media, but a real, handwritten letter on crumpled lined paper that smelled faintly of motor oil and old cigarettes. She knew the handwriting before she even unfolded it. Josh, her brother, Riley. I know I have no right. Maybe I never did. But I wanted to ask you for one thing. Not help, not money, just your time. 10 minutes, please, not about mom and dad. Just us. Jay. She read it 3 times, her chest tightened. Of all the people she thought would reach out, Josh was at the bottom of the list. He'd been complicit, silent in the background, always borrowing, never owning. He'd watched their parents manipulate her, use her, bleed her dry. And yet, here he was, asking for a conversation. That night, she sat awake until 3 a.m., staring at the letter. Then she texted him a single word. Diner. 11 a.m. Tomorrow, the place hadn't changed. The red vinyl booths still squeaked. The smell of burnt coffee and syrup was still oddly comforting. It was the same diner they used to sneak off to as teenagers when things got too loud at home. Josh was already there when she arrived, hunched over a chipped mug, fingers drumming the table. He looked older. Not just tired, frayed, like a sweater, unraveling at the seams. He stood awkwardly when she approached, and for a moment, neither of them knew what to say. Hey, he said finally. Hey. They sat. You look good, he offered. You don't, she replied, not cruelly, just honest. He nodded. I deserve that. The silence stretched. I'm clean, he said quietly. 97 days. That hit her harder than expected. Riley blinked. You were using? Yeah. For years. Off and on, it started small. Just to cope. Then it wasn't small anymore. Riley gripped her mug. You used to drive Ava around when she was 5. I know, he whispered. I know. Josh looked up at her, and for the first time in years, she saw her brother. Not the leech. Not the coward. The boy who once patched up her skinned knees. The kid who hid in the closet with her during their parents' worst fights. I didn't write you to dump all this on you, he said. I wrote because I wanted to say something I should have said years ago. I'm sorry. Riley's throat tightened. I watched what they did to you. I let it happen. I was part of it. And I justified it because I told myself you could handle it, that you were stronger. But really, I was just weak. The dam cracked. Why now? She asked. Because when you left, when you cut them off, it was like a mirror. I saw how broken we all were. And I realized, I didn't want to be like them. She looked away. I'm not here to ask for anything, he said. Just, I needed to tell you the truth, because you deserved that much. Riley was quiet for a long time. I appreciate it, she said finally. But I can't go back. Not to them. Not to who I was. No. I'm not asking you to, I just wanted you to know. I remember who you were. And I see who you are now. And I'm proud of you. They hugged before they parted. It wasn't a reconciliation. It wasn't healing. But it was something. Weeks passed. Riley dove into her work. Her new life. She started volunteering at a local shelter, teaching financial literacy to women starting over. It was fulfilling, for the first time in years. Her days didn't revolve around solving someone else's crisis. Then came a knock. She peered through the peephole. Amanda. She opened the door. Don't slam it, Amanda said quickly. I'm not here to lecture you. I just want you to see something. Amanda handed her an envelope. Inside, a property deed. Riley frowned. Mom and Dad sold the house, Amanda explained. They're moving into an RV. Dad says it's freedom. But we both know it's because no one will rent to them with their credit. Riley stared at the paper. They blame you, Amanda added. But they also don't understand you. They never did. And you. I think, You did what I couldn't, what none of us could. You broke the cycle. Amanda left without asking for coffee, or comfort. Riley sat with the deed in her hands. The house she'd grown up in, where love had always come with a price tag. That night, she burned it, not out of anger, out of release. Months later, Greenlight Futures launched. Riley's nonprofit, her legacy. She hosted seminars, shared her story, and built safe spaces, and slowly, quietly, people started coming forward. I was Riley, too, one woman said after a speech. I left my family last year. Your story. It saved me, another confessed. Each voice was a stitch in the fabric of something bigger than revenge. It was a restoration. A community not built on blood, but on truth. Her parents, they still posted, still whispered, still played victim, but their words couldn't reach her anymore because Riley wasn't theirs to ruin. She was hers to protect, and she was just getting started. A year had passed since Riley Green disassociated from her family, burned the bridges, soaked in betrayal, and rewrote the narrative of her life with ink made of resolve. But just when she thought she'd closed the book, life opened a new chapter. It began with a knock not at her door, but at the foundation, her assistant buzzed in, voice hesitant. Riley, a man is asking to see you. Says his name is Everett. Says he's your grandfather. Riley's heart stuttered. Her grandfather. He was the family ghost. The man her father never spoke about, except in curses. He had vanished when Riley was a child, some story about betrayal, loans, and disgrace. Send him in, she said. A tall man entered, lean with age, eyes like foggy windows into old storms. He held a worn leather binder, trembling in his hands. Riley, he said, voice cracked with time. I hoped I'd find you before it was too late. I thought you were dead. I was. To them. She didn't offer him a seat. He sat anyway. I'm not here for forgiveness, he said, just to explain. I was cut out the same way you cut them out. Because I stood up to them once. Your father was always charming, but dangerous with it. He sold me out when I refused. To cover his debts. Riley's throat tightened. The cycle it didn't start with her. It started long before. Everett opened the binder. Inside were letters, dozens of them. Addressed to her, none ever sent. I tried, he whispered, I wrote every year. But they returned them. Said you didn't need me. That you hated me, so I stayed away. Her eyes blurred. These are yours now. I won't stay long. He rose, left the binder, and exited with the quiet of someone who knew they were unwelcome but still loved. That night, Riley read every letter. Letters about her birth, her childhood milestones, her father's cruelty, her mother's manipulation. He'd been watching from afar, too scared to push, too heartbroken to stop trying. She didn't sleep. The next morning, Riley looked up Everett's address and drove 2 hours to his modest cottage near the coast. He opened the door before she could knock. I made coffee, he said. As if he'd always known she'd come. They talked for hours. About her father's darkness, her mother's complicity, and how the rot in her family tree had long roots. I saw your story in the paper, he said. How did you start Greenlight Futures? That's when I knew you were strong enough to know the truth. I wish I'd known you sooner, Riley said. Everett smiled, thin and soft. You know me now. For the first time, the family didn't feel like a weapon. 3 months later, Everett passed away quietly in his sleep. Riley gave the eulogy to a nearly empty room. Her voice didn't waver. Everett Green was erased by people who feared his truth, but he lived with quiet integrity. And he left behind something more valuable than inheritance. He left clarity. When the will was read, Everett left her his land, a sprawling, wild property overlooking the sea. With it, she expanded Greenlight Futures, turning the house into a retreat center for people healing from generational trauma. And then came the final blow. One rainy evening, Ava, Messaged. Speech balloon, Riley, you need to see this. Attached, was a lawsuit? Her parents were suing her for emotional damages, claiming she'd maliciously abandoned them and caused irreparable mental anguish. Riley stared at the document. Heartbeat calm. This wasn't a shock, it was the natural tantrum of people who had lost control. Her lawyer called. We'll destroy this in court. It's laughable. Riley nodded. Good, but I want them to speak. I want the world to hear what entitlement sounds like. The court date came. Her parents walked in, as if arriving at a reunion. Her mother wore black lace like a widow. Her father limped theatrically. They spoke of betrayal, of suffering, of Riley's unprovoked cruelty. Then it was Riley's turn. She didn't cry. She didn't yell. She simply said, they stole from me, lied to me, guilt-tripped me into sacrificing everything. And when I reclaimed my life, they called it violence. This lawsuit, it's not about justice. It's about revenge against the daughter who refused to be their property. The courtroom was silent. The judge dismissed the case, but Riley's final act wasn't in court. She wrote a memoir. The Final Cut, Choosing Yourself When Family Won't. It became a bestseller. Not because it was dramatic, but because it was true, and thousands of people who had felt like ATMs with heartbeats read it and whispered, "I'm Riley, too." On her 33rd birthday, Riley stood at the cliffside near Everett's retreat center. She scattered some of his ashes into the sea. Ava, Micah, Sasha, they stood with her. "Do you miss them?" Ava asked. Riley thought for a moment. "No," she said. "I miss who I wanted them to be. But I don't miss who they were." Then she smiled. "I don't need them to be okay anymore. I have me." And the waves crashed like applause against the rocks. Because Riley Green was no longer a story of survival. She was the author of her freedom. And this time, no one else held the pen.